Welcome to the Claude Certified Associate Foundation's CCAO-F Question Bank series. In this video, I've got 15 exam-style practice questions lined up for you, covering the kind of prompting, output evaluation, product and model selection, workflow integration, projects configuration, responsible use, and troubleshooting scenarios you'll see on the real CCAO-F exam. Each question comes with the correct answer and a full explanation, including why the wrong options are wrong. Here's how to get the most out of this. When a question appears, pause the video, pick your answer, then hit play to check yourself. Ready? Let's dive in. Question 31. A sales development team manually writes a short qualification summary after every discovery call, a repetitive task consuming significant time each week. How could Claude best be used to optimize this process? The correct answer is B. Create a reusable prompt or template that takes call notes as input and produces a consistently structured qualification summary, which reps then review and adjust, saving time versus writing from scratch each time. This reflects sound process optimization, using a repeatable, structured prompt to accelerate a repetitive writing task, while keeping human review in the loop for accuracy and judgment. Now, why the other options are wrong? A. Continue writing every summary manually since this task is too simple to benefit from AI assistance. Is incorrect. Repetitive, structured summarization tasks are a good fit for AI assistance and represent a clear efficiency opportunity, not an unsuitable use case. C. Ask Claude to write a single generic summary template with no placeholders for actual call details, and reuse identical text for every lead. Is incorrect. A generic, non-customized summary defeats the purpose of qualification notes, which need to reflect the specifics of each call. D. Have Claude fully replace the sales rep's judgment by deciding independently, with no human review, which leads should be pursued or dropped. Is incorrect. Removing human judgment from lead qualification decisions entirely is inappropriate. Claude should support the process, not autonomously make final go, no-go calls without review. Question 32. A mid-size B2B company wants to design a workflow where inbound demo requests are triaged, a personalized follow-up is drafted, relevant case studies are matched to the prospect's industry, and everything is logged in the CRM, with Claude assisting at multiple points. What is the most sound approach to designing this multi-step workflow? The correct answer is C. Map out the distinct steps: triage, drafting, matching case studies, logging. Define clearly where Claude assists with drafting, summarizing, matching, versus where a human reviews and approves, especially before anything is sent externally or written permanently to the CRM. And design the workflow around those checkpoints. Sound workflow design breaks a multi-step process into discrete stages, clarifies where Claude adds value, drafting, matching, summarizing, versus where human review approval is needed, especially before external communication or permanent record changes, and integrates Claude to augment rather than fully replace the process. Now, why the other options are wrong? A. Use Claude only for the CRM logging step and handle triage, drafting, and case study matching entirely manually. Is incorrect. This underutilizes Claude's strengths in drafting and matching content, focusing it only on a step where it may add the least distinctive value compared to the others. B. Avoid using Claude anywhere in this workflow since it involves customer-facing communication. Is incorrect. Claude can appropriately assist with drafting and matching tasks within a customer-facing workflow as long as human review is built in at the right points. Avoiding it entirely forgoes legitimate efficiency gains. D. Have Claude perform the entire workflow autonomously end-to-end, including final CRM data entry and sending the follow-up email with no defined human checkpoints. is incorrect. A fully autonomous, unchecked workflow that sends outbound communication and modifies CRM records without human checkpoints introduces unnecessary risk of errors and unreviewed external communication. Question 33. A marketing director is presenting to the leadership team about incorporating Claude into the team's workflow. A stakeholder asks whether Claude can guarantee real-time awareness of a competitor's website changes made this morning. What is the most accurate way to communicate Claude's capabilities and limitations here? The correct answer is D. Explain that Claude's core training knowledge has a cutoff and isn't inherently live, but that research capabilities, or providing the current page content directly, can give it access to up-to-date information for a specific task and set expectations accordingly. Accurately communicating both the limitation, a knowledge cutoff, no automatic real-time awareness, and the mitigation, research capabilities, or supplying current content directly, reflects honest, precise stakeholder communication about capabilities and limitations. Now, why the other options are wrong? A. Say no. Claude can never access or reason about any current information under any circumstances, is incorrect. This understates Claude's capabilities. Research features and directly provided/current content can give Claude access to up-to-date information for a given task. B. Avoid answering the question since discussing model limitations undermines confidence in adopting Claude, is incorrect. Transparently communicating both value and limitations builds credible trust with stakeholders and supports sound adoption decisions. Avoiding the question is not good practice. C. Say yes. Claude always has real-time knowledge of any website's current content without needing any additional tools or setup, is incorrect. This overstates Claude's default capabilities. Without a live browsing/research capability or fresh input, a model cannot be assumed to know about content changed just this morning. Question 34. A customer success team is designing a new onboarding email sequence for new subscribers. They ask Claude to draft the sequence, then test it internally, gather feedback that emails 2 and 4 feel repetitive, and want to refine the sequence accordingly. What does this scenario best illustrate? The correct answer is C. Using Claude to support iterative solution design, where an initial draft is tested, feedback is gathered, and the solution is refined in subsequent rounds rather than treated as final on the first attempt. This scenario demonstrates iterative solution design. An initial Claude-assisted draft is evaluated against real feedback, repetitiveness between emails 2 and 4, and the team uses that feedback to guide refinement, which is a core part of using Claude to support solution development and iteration. Now, why the other options are wrong? A. A failure of Claude, since a properly functioning AI tool should produce a perfect final sequence on the first attempt, is incorrect. Expecting a perfect first draft with zero need for iteration is an unrealistic standard. Refinement based on feedback is a normal and expected part of solution design, not evidence of failure. B. Evidence that email sequences should never be drafted with AI assistance since they require multiple rounds of revision, is incorrect. The need for revision does not disqualify AI assistance from the process. It simply reflects the normal iterative nature of solution design, which Claude can support at each round. D. An example of governance risk requiring legal review before any further work continues, is incorrect. Refining email copy for repetitiveness based on internal feedback is a normal creative design iteration, not a governance or legal risk issue. Question 35. At the kickoff meeting for a new product launch campaign, the team wants to generate a wide range of creative campaign concepts before narrowing down to a final direction. What is an appropriate way to use Claude at this stage? The correct answer is B. Ask Claude to generate a broad range of campaign concept ideas and angles to prime team discussion, understanding that these are starting points for the team to evaluate, combine, and refine rather than final decisions. Using Claude to generate a wide range of raw concepts to fuel brainstorming and team discussion is a sound early-stage use, supporting research, planning, and idea generation before the team applies its own judgment to narrow down a direction. Now, why the other options are wrong? A. Ask Claude to generate exactly one campaign concept, so there is no need for further discussion is incorrect. Limiting to a single option undermines the purpose of a kickoff brainstorm, which benefits from a range of ideas to discuss and compare. C. Ask Claude to select the single best campaign concept and commit the full budget to it without any team discussion is incorrect. Committing budget based on an AI-generated concept with no team discussion or evaluation skips necessary human judgment and validation for a major business decision. D. Avoid using Claude at the kickoff stage, since brainstorming is a purely human activity, is incorrect. Brainstorming and idea generation is actually a task type where Claude can add significant value by rapidly generating a wide range of starting concepts. Question 36. A sales team currently spends 20 minutes after every call manually typing notes into the CRM, often losing details or delaying entry by days. Leadership wants to redesign this workflow using Claude to make it more efficient. Which redesign best reflects good workflow integration practice? The correct answer is A. Reps continue taking their own rough notes during or immediately after calls, then use Claude to convert those rough notes into a consistently structured CRM entry, summary, next steps, key objections, which reps quickly review before saving to reduce time spent and improve consistency. This redesign augments the existing workflow. It keeps the human input step, reps' own notes, capturing details a transcript alone might miss context on, while using Claude to handle the time-consuming structuring and formatting work, with a human review checkpoint before the record is saved. Now, why the other options are wrong? B. Have Claude automatically call the customer back to gather additional details before creating the CRM entry is incorrect. This describes an autonomous outbound communication action well beyond the scope of a chat-based productivity workflow redesign, and is not an appropriate or realistic use of Claude in this context. C. Require reps to stop taking any notes at all and let Claude entirely invent CRM entries based only on the fact that a call occurred, with no actual call content provided, is incorrect. Without any actual call content as input, Claude has no factual basis to generate an accurate entry, which would produce fabricated, unusable CRM records. D. Keep the exact same manual process unchanged, since CRM data entry is too sensitive a task to ever involve AI assistance, is incorrect. This ignores a legitimate opportunity to reduce time spent and improve consistency. Sensitivity of CRM data is a reason for human review checkpoints, not for avoiding any AI assistance in the workflow. Question 37. A strategy team wants to understand how 3 competitors are positioning a new feature category before finalizing their own go-to-market message. Which use of Claude is most aligned with supporting research and strategic planning here? The correct answer is A. Ask Claude to research and synthesize publicly available information about each competitor's messaging and positioning for the feature category, clearly noting where information is uncertain or should be independently verified. Then use this synthesis as one input into the team's own strategic discussion. Using Claude's research capability to gather and organize publicly available competitive information while flagging uncertainty and treating it as an input to, not a replacement for, the team's own strategic judgment, reflects sound use of Claude for research and planning support. Now, why the other options are wrong? B. Skip any research step and have Claude directly write the final go-to-market messaging with no competitive input at all. Is incorrect. Skipping research undermines informed strategic planning. The scenario specifically calls for understanding competitor positioning before finalizing messaging. C. Ask Claude to definitively state what each competitor's private internal strategy is, treating the response as confirmed fact. Is incorrect. Claude has no access to competitors' private internal strategy documents. Treating a generated guess as confirmed fact is a validation failure, not sound research use. D. Ask Claude to log into competitors' internal systems to pull proprietary data. Is incorrect. Claude cannot and should not be used to access competitors' private internal systems. This describes an inappropriate and unrealistic action outside legitimate research practices. Question 38. After several months of using Claude to speed up first draft creation for campaign briefs, a marketing director wants to explain the value to the CFO, who is skeptical about the expense. What is the most credible way to communicate this value? The correct answer is C. Present concrete before-after comparisons, such as measured reductions in time spent on first drafts and any quality or consistency improvements observed, while being honest about tasks where human expertise remains essential. Communicating value credibly to a skeptical stakeholder means grounding claims in concrete, measurable evidence, time savings, quality outcomes, while being transparent about limitations and where human judgment is still required, rather than making sweeping, unsupported claims. Now, why the other options are wrong. A. Tell the CFO that questioning the tool's value is not permitted per company policy. Is incorrect. Dismissing a stakeholder's legitimate question is not a credible or professional way to communicate value. It fails to address the actual concern with evidence. B. Claim that Claude has completely eliminated the need for the creative team without any supporting data. Is incorrect. This overstates impact, is not credible without supporting evidence, and misrepresents Claude as a full replacement rather than a productivity aid, which risks damaging trust with a skeptical stakeholder. D. Avoid providing any metrics since ROI from AI tools cannot be measured in any way. Is incorrect. Metrics like time to first draft or revision cycles can typically be measured. Avoiding any quantification makes the case less credible to a skeptical financial stakeholder. Question 39. A marketing team wants every conversation within their Claude project to consistently use their brand's preferred terminology. For example, always clients, never customers, without having to repeat this instruction in every new chat. What is the best way to configure this? The correct answer is B. Add the terminology preference to the project's custom instructions so it automatically applies to conversations within that project. Project custom instructions are designed exactly for this purpose. Persistent guidance that applies automatically across conversations within the project, avoiding the need to restate preferences every time. Now, why the other options are wrong? A. Switch to a different Claude model since terminology consistency is a model selection issue. Is incorrect. Terminology preference is a configuration/instruction matter, not something resolved by choosing a different model tier. C. Type the terminology preference at the start of every single new conversation manually. Is incorrect. This is repetitive and error-prone. Project custom instructions exist specifically to avoid needing to restate the same guidance in every conversation. D. Ask each team member to memorize the preference and self-correct Claude's outputs after the fact. Is incorrect. Relying on manual after-the-fact correction is inefficient compared to configuring the preference once at the project level. Question 40. A content team wants all campaign copy generated within their project to follow their 40-page brand style guide, covering tone, banned words, formatting rules. What is the most effective way to make this guide consistently available to Claude? The correct answer is C. Upload the style guide as a knowledge source within the project, so it's available as reference material for conversations in that project. Uploading reference documents like a style guide as a project knowledge source is exactly what this feature is for, making detailed reference material consistently available without needing to paste it into every conversation. Now, why the other options are wrong? A. Paste the entire style guide into the first message of every new conversation every time is incorrect. This is repetitive and inefficient compared to uploading the document once as a persistent project knowledge source. B. Email the style guide to each team member and trust everyone to manually apply it themselves without configuring anything in Claude is incorrect. This bypasses using Claude's configuration capabilities entirely, resulting in inconsistent application rather than reliable automatic reference within the project. D. Summarize the entire 40-page guide from memory into a 2-sentence custom instruction and discard the original document is incorrect. Compressing a detailed 40-page guide into 2 sentences would lose most of the specific rules, banned words, formatting details. Uploading the full document as a knowledge source preserves that detail. Question 41. A sales enablement manager wants Claude to always reference the latest version of the sales deck and one-pagers, which are frequently updated and stored in the company's shared Google Drive folder, without manually re-uploading files every week. What is the most appropriate configuration approach? The correct answer is B. Set up a connector to the relevant Google Drive folder so Claude can access current versions of these files as needed, rather than relying on static uploads that go stale. Connectors are designed to give Claude access to live external sources like Google Drive, which is well suited for frequently updated files, avoiding the staleness problem of static uploaded copies. Now, why the other options are wrong? A. Upload a copy of the sales deck once and never update the configuration again is incorrect. A one-time static upload will quickly become outdated, given that the manager says the files are frequently updated, undermining the goal of always referencing the latest version. C. Switch to a more capable model since keeping reference material current is a model selection problem is incorrect. Keeping access to current files up to date is a knowledge connector configuration issue, not something resolved by model tier selection. D. Ask every rep to manually paste the entire deck content into chat before every conversation is incorrect. This is highly inefficient and error-prone compared to configuring a connector for ongoing access to current files. Question 42. A marketing project was set up 8 months ago with uploaded knowledge sources including a pricing sheet and a competitive positioning doc. The company has since changed pricing twice and repositioned against a new competitor, but the project's knowledge sources were never updated. A team member now gets an outdated pricing figure in a generated proposal. What is the root issue and appropriate fix? The correct answer is B. The project's knowledge sources were not maintained as the underlying business information changed. The team should establish a regular review process to update or remove outdated uploaded documents, like the old pricing sheet, and replace them with current versions. This illustrates the importance of ongoing knowledge management. Uploaded reference material can become stale as real-world information changes, and projects need periodic review and updates to knowledge sources to stay accurate and avoid outputs based on outdated data. Now, why the other options are wrong? A. Projects automatically detect and remove outdated information without any user action needed, so this could not have happened, is incorrect. This is not an accurate assumption. Uploaded knowledge sources do not automatically self-update, which is exactly why the outdated pricing sheet persisted and caused the error. C. The team should stop using projects entirely and instead repaste all reference material in every new chat, is incorrect. Abandoning projects removes a useful, persistent configuration feature. The correct fix is maintaining the knowledge sources within the project, not discarding the feature. D. Claude fabricated the outdated pricing figure on its own, unrelated to the project's configuration, is incorrect. This mischaracterizes the cause. The output reflects the actual outdated content that was left in the project's knowledge sources, not a spontaneous fabrication. Question 43. A marketing team lead wants all outputs from the team's project to consistently avoid using superlative claims, e.g., best, number one, for legal reasons, across every future conversation and every team member, without relying on each person remembering to ask for it. What is the most effective way to enforce this? The correct answer is C. Add a clear, persistent, system-level custom instruction in the project stating that outputs must avoid unsubstantiated superlative claims, so it applies automatically regardless of who is chatting or what they ask. A persistent, system-level custom instruction at the project level is the appropriate mechanism to enforce a standing rule automatically across all conversations and team members, rather than relying on individuals to remember it. Now, why the other options are wrong? A. Ask Claude to include superlative claims by default and remove them manually after each output is generated is incorrect. This is backwards and inefficient. It is far more effective to instruct Claude not to generate such claims in the first place via a persistent instruction. B. Rely on the legal team to review every single output manually instead of configuring any instructions. Is incorrect. While legal review has its place for high-stakes claims, it is not a substitute for proactively configuring a standing instruction that reduces the frequency of the problem occurring in the first place. D. Send a company-wide email once asking everyone to remember not to use superlatives when prompting Claude. Is incorrect. Relying on individual memory across an entire team is unreliable compared to configuring a persistent instruction that automatically applies within the project. Question 44. A customer success manager wants Claude to help draft replies by referencing the actual email thread history with a specific client, rather than the manager copying and pasting each email manually every time. Which capability would streamline this? The correct answer is D. A Gmail connector, allowing Claude to access relevant email content directly rather than requiring manual copy-pasting for each conversation. A Gmail connector is designed to give Claude direct access to relevant email content, which streamlines drafting replies based on real thread history without manual copy-paste for every interaction. Now, why the other options are wrong? A. Increasing the project's custom instructions with a longer description of the client relationship. Is incorrect. Custom instructions describe general behavior providers. They do not give Claude access to the actual content of a specific email thread the way a connector does. B. Manually retyping the entire email history into chat before every reply is drafted. Is incorrect. This is the inefficient manual process the manager is trying to avoid. A connector is the more efficient solution. C. Switching to haiku for faster responses. Is incorrect. Model Speed Tier does not address the need for accessing actual email thread content. That is a connector data access question. Question 45. A company just completed a full rebrand, including a new logo, updated color palette, and revised tone of voice guidelines. Their marketing project's custom instructions and knowledge sources still reference the old brand name and tone. What should the team do before continuing to use the project for new campaign work? The correct answer is B. Update the project's custom instructions and replace or revise the outdated knowledge sources to reflect the new brand name, tone of voice guidelines, and any other rebrand changes before relying on it for new work. After a significant business change like a rebrand, project configuration, custom instructions, and uploaded knowledge sources should be reviewed and updated to reflect the current brand identity, ensuring future outputs are accurate and on brand. Now, why the other options are wrong. A. Only update the project's name, title, leaving the instructions and knowledge sources untouched is incorrect. Renaming the project alone does not update the substantive content, instructions, knowledge sources, that actually shapes Claude's outputs. Those need to be revised as well. C. Continue using the project as is, since custom instructions and knowledge sources do not need to be updated after major business changes is incorrect. Configuration should reflect current, accurate information. Leaving outdated brand references in place after a rebrand risks generating off-brand or incorrect outputs. D. Delete the project entirely and never use projects again for this team is incorrect. Discarding the project entirely is an overreaction. Updating the existing configuration is more efficient than abandoning a useful, persistent setup. And that's a wrap on this video. Nice work getting through those 15 questions. If this helped, you're going to want the complete set. All 360 exam-style questions, with full explanations across all 7 CCAO-F domains, are available in my Udemy course, Claude Certified Associate Foundations, CCAO-F 6 Practice Tests. The link is in the description below. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next video, where I'll walk you through 15 more questions. See you in the next video.